he's the guy who makes like those patriotic march type musics.
Hooray for the red, white, and blue. That's John Philip Sousa. Da 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 da.
John Philip Sousa, whose marches still echo around the world, was a composer in touch with the heart of America.
He just found that popular music formula that people loved. It was America.
Sousa is best known today for his marches. In his lifetime, he was the most popular American musician, a charismatic showman. From the 1890s, for close on 40 years, the Sousa Band played to packed houses. He was an American musical hero.
John Philip Sousa was a pop star in the 1890s, in the 1980s, in the 19-teens, in the 1920s, and he died a pop star in the early 30s.
I think in his own day, Sousa was as big as Elvis or the Beatles. His fame preceded him and his fame followed him.
Why was Sousa so successful? At the heart of Sousa's appeal is the sheer energy of his marches. They bring together the liveliness of dance with the power of martial music. But he was not just a great composer. His story is one of a man in tune with the popular tastes of a nation.
In American history, Sousa is unique because he was a great composer and a great entertainer. This is the house where he was born in Washington in the Navy Yard district. This is Sousa's father and mother. Antonio Sousa was a member of the Marine Band.
Sousa's parents were European immigrants. His father was a trombonist in the US Marine Band. As a child, Sousa was surrounded by military music, but he also had a classical music tutor, and in the evenings even led his own dance band.
Oboes.
He began to sense how to win over and entertain an audience.
Cornet players, please. Okay, here we go. Fairest the fair, we got it? Sousa, when he was 13, organized a little dance orchestra that played for dances around Washington. The image I have is of a young composer in his formulative age watching people dance and watching the effect of his music on the dancers. And it seems to me that feeling of the dance is there in every piece he ever wrote. They have this effervescence and that quality. He wrote this great line that I want my marches to make a man with a wooden leg stand up and dance. To be able to get that into your music 75 years after you're dead, that's pretty amazing. I can't think of any composer in history that wrote the music that he wrote for people to hear more than Sousa. In other words, what he cared about was not what he wrote, but how it was received. I think that motivated Sousa from day one. Okay, all right, that's coming very nicely. This is a picture of Sousa in his early 20s as conductor of the orchestra at Ford's Theater in Washington.
In 1880, when he was just 25, Sousa was appointed director of the US Marine Band. His father had signed him up as an apprentice when he was a teenager, and now he was back. Over the next 12 years, he turned the Marine Band into one of Washington's biggest attractions.
The Marine period from 1880 to 1892 was really formulative for Sousa as a bandmaster. He got a chance to try out programming. He began writing marches. Everybody in Washington was tremendously impressed that he could improve the quality of the band that much in such a short time.
In 1892, John Philip Sousa was faced with a choice that would fundamentally change the course of his life. He was offered the chance to form a commercial band.
The biggest professional bandmaster at that time, Patrick Gilmore, was in ill health. His manager, David Blakely from Chicago, was casting about to find the next Gilmore. And so he got Sousa and offered him an enormous sum of money to leave the Marines, which Sousa had never thought of doing. And there was a feeling in Washington that something terrible had happened when he decided to leave. It was very, very popular.
Dear Mr. Blakely, I congratulate you most heartily on your success in extracting Director Sousa from the national capital. You could hardly have done a more incendiary thing if you had placed dynamite under the popular branch of Congress. Seriously, I wish you the best of luck. Mr. Nettleton, Treasury Department.
New York, a competitive commercial metropolis, the home-to-be of the newly formed Sousa Band under the management of the great impresario David Blakely.
Sousa was aware of the importance of New York City as the first city of the country. And if he was going to be noticed by everybody, the Sousa Band had to be based in New York City. If you made it in New York City, you probably could go around the rest of the country just as one can today saying, I played in Carnegie Hall.
Sousa was facing a big challenge. A key step to success was to recruit the very best players.
Sousa and Blakely set up their offices and the whole operation in New York City because it was the place where the most foreign immigrants would come. And the terrific talent that was beginning to come over from Europe to America came there. So it was a natural place for him to form the band.
Players of all nationalities had heard how Sousa had popularized the Marine Band. So for his new enterprise, he had the pick of the best.
Dear Sir, the news took place in our papers that you will start with an excellent organization, and I calculate that you are in want of fine musicians.
I am a member
I
of
have
Brooks'
delivered.
band playing second slide trombone. At present, I am at the Olympic Theatre Harlem, New York. I am acquainted with all classes of music.
I have been bandmaster in the British Army, and before that was solo clarinet in the Royal Artillery Band, England. I have the highest testimonials for ability and sobriety. My age is 37 years, married, no children, and not likely to have any. Henry Stockton.
Sousa had put together a band of virtuosi. This was a band that played at the highest level.
They were honed to the nth degree. He was a terrific conductor. And the band was quite extraordinary. And the Sousa Band itself was a huge attraction, along with the conductor.
So these 6/8 marches are like dancing waltzes, you know, marching waltzes. They have this yup, up, 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 up. In the clarinets in particular, watch that you don't make sure that the three quavers fill the beat evenly, and you don't go da 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 dee da 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 dee da. Let's play. Here we go. 1, 2, same.
Using New York as its base, the Sousa Band toured America, and wherever it went, the excitement was palpable. The attraction of the band was not just its musicianship, it was the total experience of the Sousa show.
Oh, come on!
His shows were slick, fun, and they covered a wide range of musical styles.
Snare drum! Snare drum! Hold back!
Sousa gave his audiences the music they knew and loved, but with more verve and polish than anyone else.
Separate the dotted crosses.
Mr. Sousa caught on right away. There isn't a book or stationery store that has not one or more of Mr. Sousa's pictures in his shop window, and the handsome white uniform on the handsome brunette man shows off in great shape. Your splendid enterprise has brought into our midst one of the most royal good fellows, and certainly to our minds, the first musical director in the world today.
Okay.
Someone like Sousa, who starts in the late 19th century, is an enormously eclectic figure. What he plays is eclectic, as it was throughout the 19th century. He plays what we would today call European art music. He plays operatic music. He plays band music. He plays popular songs, the kinds of things you could go to a bar and hear. Sousa plays all of that kind of stuff. So has anyone here seen Kelly? That's one of the songs he plays. And he's criticized for that because he plays that right after a Wagner overture.
Will my eyes be the eyes that are brightest? Will my hands be the softest and whitest? Will my love...
Sousa has a way of pleasing all tastes. The classicists get their share, the lovers of the melodies of the people theirs, and the gallery gods are able to keep time to the southern plantation dances with indescribable delight.
It was the genius of the programming that got them going. It's not a bad analogy to think that a Sousa concert is much more like a Broadway show than a regular concert, but not in the sense of having dancing girls come on or anything, simply in the way that the music is paced. The average amount of time that elapsed in a Sousa concert between pieces was about 8 seconds. In a modern concert today, it can be up to 3 minutes. When the first number is finished, bang, they're into the second one and the third one. It's real genius, and it's fun.
Sousa's brilliant showmanship was pulling in the crowds, but 4 years after the band was formed, tragedy struck. Sousa's manager, Blakely, died.
In 1896, when Sousa and his wife were vacationing in Rome, actually, they received a telegram that David Blakely had died. And it was a major thing in Sousa's life. They were very close, even though they fought a lot. And it was kind of tragic. So he cut his vacation short, and they got on a boat and came back to the United States. And on the boat, Sousa began to hear this music.
Here came one of the most vivid incidents of my career. As I paced the deck, absorbed in thought, suddenly I began to sense the rhythmic beat of a band playing in my brain. It kept on ceaselessly, playing, 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 echoing and re-echoing the most distinct melody.
And as Americans do when they're away from home, they tend to think about their home and the importance of it and how much they love it. And that was going on very deeply in Sousa at that time. And so when the boat sailed into New York Harbor and he saw the Statue of Liberty, this piece was fully formed in his brain.
But when we reached the shore, I set down the measures that my brain band had been playing for me, and not a note of it has ever changed. This composition is known the world over as the Stars and Stripes Forever, and is probably my most popular march.
When Blakely died, Sousa had to decide what to do about the management of his band. That was a big turning point. But from that time on, he became much more directly involved in all of the business of the band.
Now, under Sousa's own management, the band built on its phenomenal success. Sousa's sheet music sold in vast quantities and sat on almost every parlor piano. But as the 20th century gained momentum, the landscape of American popular music was fundamentally changing. This transformation was driven by the huge growth of New York as a world commercial center.
What happens to the United States in the 19th century is it becomes increasingly a multicultural place. Huge numbers of people from Southern and Eastern Europe come into the country. There's an increasing Asian immigration into the country, and there's a black migration.
The latter stages of the 19th century is this second industrial revolution, and workers were needed. The biggest port in the United States to this day is New York City. Of course, there was immigration to other ports, but the lion's share in the extreme is in New York City. You could hear almost any type of music performed in New York City, attendant to the ethnicities that were now populating the town.
The city overflowed with new forms of popular music, but some found this vibrant, bustling metropolis, this melting pot, disconcerting and even threatening. The elite, the Vanderbilts and Carnegies, the builders of mansions and railroads, saw classical music as part of their culture. The gap widened between highbrow concerts and popular shows.
There was a sense of chaos. By the late 19th century, we have a whole new group of people in the United States who are rich. And these people, that is, industrialists and the like, only thing they have that distinguishes them from others is really their culture. They wanted to preserve music against the clamor of the masses, against mixing. They can't stop the chaos as they see it, but they can protect the culture.
The wealthy built their own concert halls paid for by subscription. They claimed opera and symphonic music as their own. Mixed eclectic concert programs like Sousa's became a rare commodity.
There was a real search for order. What happened in the 20th century is musical audiences for symphony and opera were tamed. Opera, Shakespeare, symphonic music become aligned more and more and identified more and more with the upper classes, with the highly educated classes.
After the First World War, there was a clearer definition between the high-class music that one associates with the symphony and the opera, and with the more generic popular music that one associates with Broadway shows, vaudeville, and revues. Popular music is absorbing the African-American influences of ragtime, and Sousa was in the middle of this. He remains a constant in this period of great change.
Sousa is a transitional figure, I think, a really important one. On the one hand, he represents order. His orchestra is an ordered orchestra. They wear uniforms. He wears a uniform. He's an oasis of order in the sea of chaos, and he's reassuring in that sense. He's a band master. On the other hand, well into the 20th century, Sousa retains that culture of the 19th century. He plays opera, he plays symphonic music, he plays popular music, he plays band music, he plays vaudeville music. He mixes them all together in his concerts. He really stands on both sides of the cultural divide.
There was a big split in American culture between people's music and the music of society. I think that Sousa fought it forever. I think he felt it was a very unnatural thing. He wanted music that the common man would like. He wanted things that were done with great sophistication. He mixed the two together. And that was the reason for his great success, I think.
He doesn't think any class or any genre has a monopoly on great music. And Sousa exists into the 20th century, continuing to mix genres, and he does it not because he's trying to elevate his audiences. He says he does it because he wants to entertain his audiences.
Sousa's popularity had been based on his appeal to all sectors of society. In the face of change, his concert formula was still bringing in the crowds. But in the 1920s, the competition for audiences intensified as New York City entered the jazz age.
The drink is gin, the music jazz, the dance the Charleston.
It's a rush of interest in fun. Music's fun, and it's coming on strong, and it's particularly peppy in America. The rhythmic emphasis and the excitement seems to be the driving force.
Set against this new music, Sousa's upbeat marches now seem dated and conservative.
This music, this phenomenon, this craze, was seen as something a little risque, something that maybe you ought not to be doing, and perhaps that's why you were doing it. You're listening to the Louis Armstrong Marathon. We're hearing his earliest recordings as a leader, the Hot Five Sides, on WKCR FM, New York.
The new music was a world away from Sousa. But the businessman in Sousa recognized the need to embrace another great change of the early 20th century, recording.
This is John Philip Sousa, and I'm very glad to be here with my band on this international program.
Sousa was passionate about live performance, but it was hard to resist the band's progress to stardom as recording artists.
It was a difficult time for touring bands in the 1920s, and many of them folded. The number of professional bands in America went down precipitously. The possibility that someone in their home could be entertained without going out the door made much more direct competition for Sousa, and so he was quite nervous about it. He kept himself in the public eye every way he could. He actually had his own public relations agents in New York, and Sousa cultivated his career assiduously during that time.
The answer to why Sousa's music was still pop music in the 1920s is not an easy answer, because by the dictates of passing fads, he should have been old hat.
But Sousa just kept on packing houses, selling compositions, and now large quantities of records too.
Sousa's New York concert comes near the end of his 30th annual tour as the head of the organization which bears his name. And the tour has indicated that Sousa enjoys a greater popularity perhaps than any other American musician.
I think Sousa stands apart from all of the other kinds of music that were going on. He is appealing to people in a very different way. He perhaps is stability versus the changing modes of music and art that are going on. And I believe that in the 1920s, people still went to hear him because of that stability that they could depend on in his performances and in his own music.
Sousa offered an alternative to both the rarefied atmosphere of the opera house and the basement speakeasies. Sousa imitated no one. His shows were unique.
The format throughout Sousa's career was almost unchanged. It was slightly perfected and improved, but the change occurs in the public and what's in the public taste. The genius of Sousa's format is that you can put anything into it. On a program in 1928, he might play the Washington Post March, which was from 1888. He might play Nobles of the Mystic Shrine, which is from the mid-1920s. He wrote pieces called At the Movies and Jazz America. he was always conscious of having the latest thing on his concerts, even though there were Sousa marches, classical music, all of that sort of thing. Sousa Band baseball team. Sousa as an honorary Indian chief. Picture of Sousa composing. I think at the end of his career, Sousa's audiences were much more adoring of the great star, the great Sousa. He was bigger than life. His image was enormous.
By then, he was the grand old man. He was appealing to nostalgia, and people were going out to hear him because it was Sousa's famous band. He exploited that reputation because we had a new period of music, the new jazz age, but there were still many who didn't accept it. And so some people returned to the nostalgia of the period before the war. And I think those are the people that Sousa appealed to.
Sousa continued to succeed by drawing on nostalgia, but he also played to a deep and growing sense of patriotism. America had gained in confidence after the First World War, and Sousa's music made Americans feel good about themselves. Today, this is his most obvious legacy.
Sousa's success was very much part of the whole patriotic idea, the idea of America becoming a world power for the first time. It was natural for him. It wasn't a veneer of patriotism. He was red, white, and blue from the inside out.
Start walking out this way when you're ready. Sousa was one of my favorite composers. Most of what we have today in high school marching programs wouldn't be here if it weren't for the foundation that John Philip Sousa set for us when he was alive and performing. My father was in American Legion. I remember him taking me to many parades and listening to Sousa marches at the same time hearing the bands behind. I associate those all together. A Sousa march, the American flag, the military uniform, and the celebration of the 4th of July, Memorial Day, Veterans Day parades. Nothing better than the feeling of walking down the street in a band, playing a Sousa march, the children and anybody that's standing on the sides cheering as you go by.
It's so much fun to be out there with all your friends and just play.
It's so exhilarating. You get such a rush.
I love it with a passion.
I hope that long after my marches have been forgotten, the clarion call of America, which I tried to make the keynote of my compositions, will continue to inspire her children with undying loyalty.